Alright my friends, how the hell are you? And welcome to the action department. This is the channel you check out when you need to feel like a man, or you simply just need to feel at home, away from all the BS in the world. So today let's go down memory lane and turn the clock back to the early 1990s. The great action classic Hard Boiled, directed by John Woo, opened in theaters. And to this day, it's still one of the craziest, the most insane, and best action movies really ever made. So today, let's check out a couple of things about the movie. Of course, what it's about, but also an action scene in the film that's almost 3 minutes long with no cuts. All the action, the acting was done in just one take. It's very impressive, so let's check it out. By the way, guys, if you love all this action stuff, action movies, martial arts, fitness, etc., hit that like and subscribe button. Alright, now let's get down to business. Alright, so the scene starts with our two friends here looking through the door to make sure everything is okay while they're getting the hardware ready. And then, of course, the action starts. Now, this is just the warm-up round, but pay attention to all the camera work here and all the tiny little details. In the film, these two police officers find themselves in a hospital full of nothing but bad guys. Well, and a ton of civilians, of course. Let's just say they definitely got their hands full. And of course, John Woo with one of his many trademarks, which is a lot of slow motion. I just gotta take a minute here, otherwise YouTube will rip me a new one. Okay, just to make it clear, guys. Hard Boiled is an extremely violent picture, probably the most brutal one of all John Woo's movies, especially back in his Hong Kong days from the mid-1980s until the early 90s. All his movies evolved around a ton of death and destruction. Now, Hard Boiled was his last Hong Kong movie and the most ambitious one of all, no doubt about it. So if you're an action freak and for some strange reason you missed this one, then you're definitely in for a treat and a serious surprise. Because this is action on the highest level. And this was back in the old days when the action that you saw was actually done for real. No tricks, no CGI, no BS, just the real thing. It doesn't get to be better than that. I believe there were around 5 big action scenes in the film. The opening scene alone was in a tea house where 44 people got slaughtered. Later on in the docks there were 63 casualties, and in the chop shop 38. However, the biggest action scene in the film, of course, was the entire ending, which was around 45 minutes to an hour of two guys just running around a hospital, just blowing shit up and shooting lots and lots of bad guys. Anyway, let's check in on the continuation of the long shot. Now, as you see, the camera simply just continues and continues. And this is one way of sort of checking into a hospital. You can see these guys are not holding back. Oh, yeah, that's a problem, all right. Yeah, now again, more slow motion, and you just realized, crap, I just wasted a police officer. Our two friends here, of course, are the good guys, so they're the cops. So, in the middle of all the crazy action here, imagine what the actors have to go through. First, all the action, all the timing has to be right, and right in the middle of it, they need a little moment here where they do a little bit of some emotional bullshit. Trying to figure out what the hell just happened. Did I really kill him? And he's just like, you're hallucinating. Yeah, right. Now in Hollywood, it's very rare that you see innocent people get murdered that are kinda in the way, at least in high numbers. But in the Far East, back in the day, it was a total different story. Of the 300 people that get slaughtered in this film, over 50 of them are innocent civilians that simply just, well, you know, happen to kind of be in the way, which a lot of times people don't like to see, but at the same time, it's probably much more realistic this way. And of course, it gave the director John Woo another reason for us, the audience, to hate all the bad guys, knowing that they were so evil and heartless. The film Hard Boiled is also on the top 10 list of the most killings shown in a film. The vast majority of deaths in the movie are a result of gunfire during the action sequences. However, other causes include explosions and at least one death by a sliced throat. And let's just say that was very colorful. Anyway, let's check out the rest of the scene. Yeah, and then they have a little bit of a discussion, you know, drama, high stakes. I mean, it's an action film after all. And now, yeah, they exchange some hardware. And then, oh, yeah, take the elevator. And we're clearing the room. And the action just goes on and on and on and on. and see the guy with a gun in each hand. Again, typical John Woo style. Look how they work through the room, side by side. You can tell these guys are trained expert killers. And a little bit more dialogue. And look at the big mess they have made. Again, check out the camera. It just follows them as they continue with this bloodbath through the hallway. But what the hell? They're only taking out bad guys, so we shouldn't really care, right? And as you're watching the movie, you're thinking, this action sequence has to be over now, right? Well, not quite. Well, as you can see, the action just continues. Look at that idiot. Why would he jump up on a couch? But we need some action, so... Well, there you go. That was the cut. Now, the entire action scene took 2 minutes and 50 seconds. That's an extremely long shot when you do action. Normally, you have a couple of seconds here and there. Now, after everything we just saw, the action scene continues on for at least another minute or two. Now, as you can see, there's a reason that they call John Woo the master. Now here you see an action scene from one of the Jason Bourne movies. Look how many quick cuts there are. It's so easy to cheat and create a decent fight scene, cause the quick cuts and the shaky camera work is like half the action. Now don't get me wrong, I actually like the early Bourne movies and the character itself. The problem I have with this fight scene, other than what I already mentioned, both guys are dressed in black and they both have sort of dark hair, and it makes it very difficult to see who's who, and it kind of gets annoying. It's almost like being in a dark room, really having to make an effort to see what the hell is going on. And after these Bourne movies in the early 2000s, about 20 years ago, it seemed like everybody wanted to do this shaky camera stuff, which is just such a cheap trick if you ask me. And then compare it to this long shot that's almost 3 minutes long. All the preparation, all the squibs, all the explosions, the action, the actors, the stunt people, every tiny little detail has to go hand in hand. And if just one person fucks up, they're gonna have to do it all over again. There's no freaking way they can do this in Hollywood today. And keep in mind, this movie came out way back in 1992. Now with modern day technology, you can fake a lot of this stuff. But back then, it was all about doing it real, which is much more impressive. There was just so much more heart and soul in the movies back in the old days. I mean, how can you not appreciate that? It sounds crazy to call an action film artistic, but when it comes down to John Woo and a few other directors, I will definitely choose to use that word. Because all the tiny little details, you don't even have to understand what the people are saying. It's almost like witnessing a beautiful classical concert. There's also other things that John Woo would focus on. Things like loyalty, trust, even among the bad guys. We have already gone over some of John Woo's classical trademarks in movies. However, perhaps the most famous one? Probably having two guys aiming their guns at each other at the same time. Hollywood has definitely stolen this one from Mr. Woo. And Quentin Tarantino himself, that's also a big fan of John Woo, used that in his first film, Reservoir Dogs. It's obviously very powerful to watch and a strong cinematic effect. Now, just 1 year after the release of Hard Boiled, John Woo moved to America and did his very first American feature film, which was Hard Target with Jean-Claude Van Damme. And in that movie too, you can see that he just loves to play with the camera, the acting, the action, in ways that certainly at the time nobody had ever seen. Now, over the next decade, he did other American action films, movies like Broken Arrow, Face Off, and Mission Impossible 2. However, John Woo had a problem working in America. In Hong Kong, the director is the boss, whereas in America, it's the star and the studio, the producers, that many times are telling the director what to do. And it sort of limited the man's creative abilities to make exactly the movies that he really wanted. And now, more than 30 years later, a lot of people and fans of John Woo, including myself, will say that Hard Boiled is probably his best film, at least in regards to pure action. The movie in some ways was like John Wick before John Wick. And without knowing for a fact, but I'm pretty sure that the director Chad Stahelski of the John Wick franchise was very inspired by John Woo's work, especially back in the Hong Kong days. And as mentioned earlier, Tarantino and so many other directors in Hollywood have nothing but praise and respect for the man. In fact, Tarantino introduced John Travolta to John Woo's work, and they ended up doing 2 movies together, Broken Arrow and Face Off. Martin Scorsese is another famous director and a big fan of John Woo. In fact, Woo has been called the Scorsese of Asia or the Scorsese of action. And director John Carpenter, who did the movies Halloween and Escape from New York, many times have been very critical towards other directors, but not in this case. He's also a huge admirer of John Woo's work and see him as a true artist. Now, technically, John Woo has been involved with movie making since the late 1960s, but it wasn't until 1986 that he did the movie A Better Tomorrow, which really started changing things. The following year, he did the sequel, A Better Tomorrow Part 2, and I would say they laid the foundation for his later work. A couple of other well-known Hong Kong action classics includes Bullet in the Head and The Killer. The Killer took John Woo's career to new heights, and Hollywood started noticing the man. Oh yeah, by the way, I just want to make a distinction. John Woo's Bullet in the Head is not exactly the same as Sylvester Stallone's 2012 movie Bullet to the Head. And you have probably guessed by now that they are not family films. Despite the fact that the man is 78 years old, he's still active as a director. And recently in 2024, he did a remake of The Killer. Anyway, fellas, I just wanted to check in with some more action here. I hope you enjoyed the video, since I think that John Woo definitely deserves all the credits in the world for his contributions to action films over the last half century. If you want to keep up to date with all the action news, please hit that like and subscribe button. And I'll see you in the next video. Take care, guys. And as always, stay out of trouble.